Okay, welcome to the sustainability meeting, everyone. Can we get a motion to begin?
So moved.
Okay, let's begin. Call to order. Do we approve the minutes, votes to approve the minutes, or do we have amendments? Anyone?
Okay,
Go ahead, Dick.
yeah. One thing I read in the minutes that I didn't feel was accurate was a description of our presentation at the last meeting about the Sustainability Community Award. And the minutes implies that we're only doing this for businesses. But I thought we were pretty clear, and we certainly, the subgroup of us that have been meeting on it, Dominic and Deb and I, that we want to have separate awards for individuals as well as businesses. Obviously, the criteria would be different for businesses and individuals. And I think there's something that we would want to update on this that's not part of should not be part of the minutes for tonight or for last meeting that we'll discuss later in committee updates. But I think that the minutes should reflect, and I did send an email out to Kelly and you, Christy, with CC Deb, that we should reflect in the minutes that we're talking about awards for not only businesses and other organizations, by the way. It shouldn't be just listed as a business, but business and other organizations, as well as a different award for individuals.
Okay. Is that, yeah.
Yeah, I feel we could amend the fourth bullet point of that discussion to awards will be granted to residents, individuals, businesses, and organizations. Would that address your concern?
Would.
Individuals, businesses, and what were the other things you said?
I said residents,
Okay.
individuals, businesses, and organizations.
Okay.
Well, one thing I don't know if it's needed to clarify the minutes on this, but I think we were thinking of of two different types of categories, that businesses and organizations, nonprofits, maybe the school district, would be in a bigger, broader one. And then the individuals would be in a different one. But clearly, Dominic's suggestion of all four types of people or groups would be included, but that, I don't know if that means, I don't think that means we're having one award that all four compete for. So that's the only thing that might need clarification. What do you think about that, Dominic?
I think since there was no specific award program proposed and recommended, that the proposed modification to bullet point 4 would allow the future flexibility of that and accurately represents our discussions, my opinion.
I accept that.
Okay. Laura, do you have a comment or question?
Yes, I had a question just kind of about this, because we were, the very first thing that was listed was talking about public comments, which I think are accurate. I'm not disputing that. My question is more like, do we ever get feedback on these? Do we ever discuss these? Like, okay, he made his comments, we go on. So my question is, what happened? Did we talk to him, and did the ICE purchases go through? Things like that. I'm not sure when to bring that up. We can talk about it later, but that was the question that I had in reviewing these.
That is a good question. It's definitely something I've thought of as well. I might deflect to maybe members who have been on the committee longer, or Kelly or Lisa. What has historically been done? Lisa, you had your hand up.
Yeah, well, guidance in the past that came from the former city administrator was that committees and council are not to address and discuss any public comments that are raised, unless they're related to agenda items, and then we can talk about that later on. But if something is not posted on the agenda and it comes up in a public comment and we have a discussion or take action on it, we're violating the our ordinance for open meetings. So we can come back to it at a future meeting. So it would be appropriate at the end of our agenda, when we have our standing agenda item, to come up with ideas for future meetings. It would be appropriate at that time to say, I'd like to have a discussion about, ICE vehicles or whatever.
Okay, so basically, don't necessarily talk about it now, but if at the end of the meeting, I wanted feedback on what happened, then bring it up then to make it a standing agenda for next time. Is that correct?
You would bring it up. The standing agenda item is just at the end of the meeting, we shoot out ideas for next time or a future meeting. And that would be the time to say, I'd like to have a discussion of X. We still can't discuss it. And as the person on council who sits right next to the podium where the people do the public comments, it's a terrible feeling to just be like nodding and listening and then not be able to say anything and just move on.
Okay, thank you. That was just
Yeah.
my question.
Good question, Laura. And even if at the end of the meeting you don't bring it up, you can always email Kelly, me, or, Lisa even, to say, hey, I'd like to actually discuss this, put this on the agenda for the next meeting. Then we can do that.
And I would like to give current city administrator, Brian Gatto, a chance to weigh in whether he agrees with the former approach.
Yeah, I think Lisa Alder-Hinero has laid it out exactly as the state statute describes it. You can only talk about items that are physically written on the agenda, posted properly. If anything comes up, contemporaneously during a meeting, public comment or otherwise, that has to be brought up at a future meeting in which you properly notice that agenda item. So, yep, I think your guidance is spot on.
Thank you.
Well done. Well done. Okay, so it sounds like we have an amended, the minutes are amended. Anybody else have any amendments or proposed amendments?
I'm sorry I'm late. I had a couple. Maybe somebody else already noticed this on the minutes. But I had for the we stuffed 1,000 bags. Maybe you already said that for the parade instead of 750 at the park. And then the other one was the LED update, which was later on in the minutes. The only the 60-watt equivalents were discontinued, not all of the LED bulbs for the federal program.
Okay, thank you.
Okay.
Okay, so those two items. Anyone else have any proposed amendments to the minutes? Okay, so one thing we've been doing now is if someone would like to make a motion to approve the amended minutes as discussed.
So moved.
Okay, do we have a second? Thank you, Dick.
Second.
Thank you, Laura. And do we have a vote on approving the amended minutes? What?
All in favor?
All in favor?
Aye.
I
Aye.
Aye. Any against? Okay, thank you so much, everyone. Next, we will move on to the public comments.
Actually, Robert Owens here before I.
Robert Owen, okay. Robert, we would like to start with you.
Thank you. Good evening. My name is Robert Owen. I live at 1311 Middleton Street. My comments relate to city sustainability goals and implementation of the subset of those goals relating to reducing the city's carbon footprint. I've addressed this committee numerous times over a period of several years. I'm pleased, though, to be able to say this evening that I've seen significant progress in implementation of decarbonization efforts by city staff over the last year. The prior city administrator stepped up in this area in the last 6 months or so of his tenure And Brian Gatto's appearance here this evening shows that he is committed also to progress in sustainability and decarbonization. So staff leadership is now supportive. That's important. There are also indications of progress in leadership at Pleasant View Golf Course, where Pleasant View is planning charging stations for electric carts in a few years. And at the MOC, Brad Hopwood, fleet manager, is now looking seriously at lower carbon options for the city fleet and working with Dominic Bindle on working life cycle cost analysis into fleet acquisition decisions. The fleet acquisition decision process does appear to have some occasional problems in that Sean Stowski has sought to sidestep it on occasion. Also, the police chief is not yet enthused about EVs. However, compared to a year ago, the city has made progress on vehicle and equipment acquisition decision-making. I hope and expect that progress will continue and the city will start gradually decarbonizing its vehicles and equipment. An area where further policy guidance is needed, though, is decarbonizing city buildings. The city should have a heat pump policy requiring replacement of its air conditioning, heating, and hot water equipment with heat pumps. The era of gas, space, and water heat and single-purpose air conditioners is over. Our increasingly erratic climate tells us so. The city should also enact policies rewarding builders and developers and building owners who develop all-electric buildings and subdivisions or create them by retrofit with lower building permit costs, greater building permit flexibility, and other valuable incentives. The city should also get at least level 1 and 2 charging infrastructure installed to be ready for city-owned vehicles by the end of 2022. The city should do that even if level 3 equipment is not available due to funding considerations or supply chain problems. Level 1 and 2 can get the job done in the short run. Thank you very much for your committee work and your attention.
Thank you, Robert.
And
Okay, next,
I'm Kevin
Kevin.
Spittler. Can you hear me okay? I'm kind of far from the microphone.
Can everybody hear Kevin?
Getting thumbs up,
Yep.
a few thumbs up.
Okay. With regards to, I'm Kevin Spittler and I live on Frank Lloyd Wright Avenue in Middleton Hills. I'd like to echo some of Bob's comments with regards to sustainability. The city has made considerable progress in the past year. So I'd like to thank you and your predecessors for all the hard work and dedication. I think Middleton is on the precipice of even greater accomplishments related to energy generation, usage, emissions reduction, and resiliency, as many city departments are turning more attention to the issue of sustainability and, as should be expected, the increasingly dire global circumstances related to climate change. We have many existing and emerging plans or resolutions to guide future decisions, but we need to institute better accountability. The Sustainable Purchasing Policy Update and its implementation will be a major step in this direction. And I urge the committee to modify this document so that it guides most, if not all, relevant acquisition decisions proposed by cities, departments, and staff. This doesn't have to be a bureaucratic roadblock as long as a conscious decision regarding the impact of each purchase is made via an efficient process and documented for common council review, which is not done today. Clearly, nuances must be considered and leeway or exceptions given under some circumstances. Is it too much to ask that all city departments and their staff members be expected to comply with a sustainable purchasing policy? Accordingly, this requirement could be incorporated into all job descriptions and regular performance evaluations. Current employees would need to be informed and new employees trained on this extra step. I recommend the committee propose that the council approve these aspects as part of the policy or in a separate action, whichever is most appropriate. And once approved, the mayor and city administrator can implement and monitor compliance with them. This recommendation is not intended to be an onerous task, but city staff must be expected to follow city policies And this includes the tracking and emerging emissions reducing options and equipment alternatives. Such research should be considered applicable to a successful job performance, like all other tasks associated with a position. The bottom line is that citizens of Middleton and their representatives on the Common Council must have confidence that proposals for new purchases of equipment and other materials are consistent with city policies and have been vetted through an updated and approved sustainable purchasing policy. I will note that I referred to the sustainable purchasing policy, so feel free to talk about this more today. Thanks for the opportunity to address the committee.
Thank you, Kevin. Okay, thank you, Kevin. Do we have any other public comments? I don't see any on the screen, but please let me know. Speak up if you have any. Okay, I think we are set with that. So next we will move on to the city staff report and Q&A. Kelly.
Hi, all. I'm sorry I did not fill out and completely the staff report this month. I had some mishaps involving accidents and COVID. So I outlined the projects that I'm working on right now, and there's not huge updates besides just the intricacies of meetings with the PSC and contract negotiations and lots of bureaucratic things. I have a couple updates I could give. That the mayor will be attending the Wisconsin Local Government Climate Coalition Roundtable with other mayors in the state of Wisconsin to talk about climate goals and how their cities are approaching their energy goals and what they're doing to meet those goals. So I think that it's a group that I take part of with all the other sustainability coordinators in the state that's been very helpful, and I think is gaining quite a bit of clout in the state with the state agencies, especially in the PSC. And now we're getting the electeds on board so that we're all on the same page and understand what's in front of us and tasks for meeting those energy goals. So that's in Milwaukee on October 14th, and all the major cities will be represented and with some other Dane County smaller municipalities like Middleton and Sun Prairie, and then a few smaller towns and also counties throughout the state. So I think it'll be a rich discussion for those elected officials. And the Sustainability Leadership Collaborative, which is a Dane County collaboration, that we've decided that the next meeting we have will be to go over the Inflation Reduction Act funding that's coming down the pike, which I think is going to be really important to get ahead of and in front of and understand what we want to go to collaborate on grants with other communities and which things our city wants to go for as its own municipality and what our priorities are for that funding. Because it's not always clear. Luckily, we have an energy plan and energy goals to help guide us in some of those decisions. In other news, I did a walkthrough for the Lakeview electrification solar plus battery storage project, which is kicking off now, which is quite exciting, I think. There was a large crowd of people there from Elevate Energy and WHPC, which Wisconsin Housing Preservation Corps, and some engineers, and then some city staff that went to that as well to discuss that project. And that ties in somewhat indirectly, but related to our ARPA funded energy efficiency projects in Middleton that'll have solar and electrification retrofits in affordable housing. And I think that I'll leave the rest up for if you have questions to ask me now or reach out to me later via email.
Lisa.
Hi, I have a couple of questions. Thanks for that update, Kelly. First of all, the October 14th Wisconsin Local Government Climate Coalition meeting, do you know, is that going to be live streamed?
No, I think it's really meant to give mayors especially a chance to just talk shop with each other and network and, you know, pressure one another.
Sure.
So we'll see.
And then the second question I had was about the Lakeview electrification project. Is that in District 4?
Yes.
Okay, I was just wondering if Alder Emily Kuhn had been invited to participate in, some of the review of what's going to be happening.
She will be, for sure. This was a walkthrough really for WHPC and their solar people. So, and it actually wasn't a walkthrough. We just met outside the building and talked and got to know one another. So I do hope that there's more meetings like that. I only found out about it late in the day before it happened. So it wasn't the most planned event.
Okay. Any other questions? I don't see anybody else's hand up. I have a quick question, Kelly. Can you, oh, Dick, you go next.
Excuse me. The ARPA money, the 150,000, can you give us a little more of an update on where that's at and the application process? Just so other committee members know, I think this is where we have money, 150,000 per year for 3 years to help low-income housing units upgrade their energy systems. And we've been hearing about this since last winter. So I think we're kind of waiting for this to develop, but I think getting a better update of where this is at would be useful.
Yeah, right now, Elevate Energy is designing the application as a draft, and then that will be distributed to community groups such as MOM and the Youth Center and the Senior Center and city staff to create an application process that's transparent and fair, but also we're trying to decide as a project, it's not the full team, but internally, whether there's justification for targeting particular neighborhoods each year, or whether it's going to be a citywide application process, or what the best way is to go about that. But we need that to be data driven and have reasoning and justification for that. So right now we've put together maps, and MOM has been tasked with coming up with a more qualitative heat map, sort of experiential data, talking about where they work mostly in Middleton and any relationships they already have. And because they're going to be an integral, I think, project partner on this. And the plan right now is to have that application finished by the end of September, although that may get pushed into the first week or two of October. And then we'll meet as a larger group, which would include more community groups and also alders and people who would like to be a part of the sort of an advisory group, I think. Elevate's really leading a lot of this, so I'm rambling a bit, but Elevate and Sustain Dane have a scope of work that's laid out that I can share with you. I think I've shared it in the past. So this work has been somewhat delayed because of, well, I was on vacation for 3.5 weeks, but it was really the contract, which took a really long time because it's ARPA funds. It has to meet really strict requirements and reporting regulations by the federal government. So we used another consulting service, which is helping us through this on all of our ARPA projects. And it took quite a while to decide how we could go about expending this money and how to report on it in the right way. It's pretty bureaucratic. And then it also takes time to set it up. But once we set up the application process and get it rolling, then I think the actual finding contractors to do the work and actually getting the systems upgraded in 3 buildings this year, 3 buildings next year, or 6 buildings all at once in the beginning of next year can happen fairly quickly. It's more about trying to make sure we set it up the right way, that we can replicate this in future years.
Yeah, I just want to follow up, please, Christy.
Sure.
So as I've had conversations with you about it, so I think I understand that this is more looking at say, apartment complexes. So how do they upgrade their air conditioning systems or their heating systems or their water heating systems for the whole unit complex, as opposed to working individually with renters within that? Is that right? So it's more of a bigger picture for the whole thing, where they might consider solar for the unit, but they're not going to be working directly with the apartment renters, because we'll discuss it later in our LED light bulb project. But I think that the scope is a little bit bigger than just individual renters and improving their own energy efficiency within the unit itself. Is that a fair assessment?
Yeah, I think the goal was not to replicate Focus on Energy's offerings, which anyone can take advantage of some of their rebates and do smaller things in their own individual dwellings. But this was meant to work with building owners, and probably not of big apartment complexes. It's probably more like duplexes, 2 and 3 unit housing typically. And we did talk about whether we wanted to do more buildings in a shallow way or do fewer buildings and do a really deep dive into the energy retrofits. And we decided we wanted to do fewer buildings, but do it more deeply, rather than doing a very low tier of energy efficiency across more buildings, which would have, it would have reduced emissions some, but we just preferred to try to really see what does it mean to go into an older building that's maybe not in the best condition, poor indoor air quality, and really make it really energy efficient and livable, and better indoor air quality and all those benefits you get from that, and maybe reduce the energy burden if possible. But what it will depend on are the energy assessments. So it's not something where a building owner will apply and say, we've got like an old unit that we'd like replaced, so we would like $10,000 in our unit. It's going to be more of, sure, we'd like to take part in this larger program. And then once we get that application, someone will go out and do an energy assessment of the entire building, a really deep energy assessment to see how would we work in this building more deeply. And then there'd be a scheme developed for that building owner to go over and decide whether they're going to do that. But some buildings might not be the best applications, because maybe some buildings would have structural problems and maybe horrible black mold problems, and so it would actually take another $100,000 just to get the building up to a certain code to then be able to do energy efficiency, and we don't have that type of money for those other problems. So it'll have to be the right type of building, and that's where the energy assessments will come in.
Okay, thank you. Any other questions for Kelly? Go, Dick, you have another one? No, okay. Okay, I think that settles it then for Kelly's report. Thank you, Kelly. Next, Brian, we're so excited that you are here. I have to find you on the screen. There you are. Thank you for coming. We are all so honored and pleased that you're here. We welcome you to this committee and to the city, and just really looking forward to getting to know you better. So thank you.
Yeah,
for
thank
taking
you so
time to come here and be with us. Go ahead.
Yeah, I appreciate that. And I have to start off with an apology. I'm on daddy daycare duty tonight, so I only have got a couple minutes tonight before I have to go back to that responsibility. But I just wanted to stop by quickly tonight to say hi for those of you that I haven't had a chance to meet in person or virtually yet. I'm Brian Gatto. I'm the newish city administrator. I've been on the job for a little over 4 months now. Very excited to be here. This is a high energy community. And as I've told other people before, having come here from the city of Monona, kind of the things that you all were doing here have always been on my radar when I was across the pond, if you will, in Monona, kind of checking in with Kelly and others through the Dane County Sustainable Leadership Coalition. I guess the one of the ways that Middleton kind of peaked on my radar was a conversation that I had with Kelly. She probably doesn't remember this. This was a couple years ago. I had read in the news that Middleton was thinking about putting in an application for Lead for Cities, which was something that I was kind of covertly doing some research on for Monona, and it wasn't going to work for us for a host of different reasons. But I was really excited about the journey that Kelly and others were helping Middleton kind of go through with that process. I'm a data geek as well, and the opportunity to have a program like that to help you kind of quantify, what we're doing well and what we can improve on, and tell that story in a narrative format really appealed to me. So, when the opportunity to come over here opened up, I kind of leaped at the chance to get to work with the staff and the elders here in Middleton. It's a top-notch community, top-notch staff, and that's one of my goals in my tenure here, is to make sure we keep the staff that we got, because quite frankly, they're subject matter experts in the things that they work on, and that was for me one of the key selling points for me to make the jump over here, is being able to work with the staff that we've got. So very excited to jump in. I will say that sustainability, like a host of other topics, it's all coming at me like like I'm drinking out of a fire hose. So there's still a lot for me to learn, at least as it is in Middleton, the priorities that we've got for sustainability and what we see coming down the pike. But it absolutely is something that I've valued professionally in the previous stops that I've had in Monona and New Glarus before that, the communities where we made iterative strides to make improvements in the quality of life for the people that we serve, and that's clearly the case here in Middleton. And there's a lot more work to do, and I would say that there's an energy and a passion amongst those that work for the city of Middleton to do it. We may all have different perspectives on the best way to get to the end goal, but I will say, just in my conversations in the last couple of months, people understand it. They get why it's important and why should we be doing it. It's finding how we can do it within the resources that we've got is the challenge, and it's a challenge, but it's an exciting challenge nonetheless for us to work through together. So just wanted to stop by and say hi. I'm sure I'll be plugging in with you more as time progresses. I have had the opportunity to kind of get the deep dive with Kelly on all of the various projects that she's been working on and all the amazing grant writing work that she's done. She really has really outdone herself with the amount of money that she's been able to bring into the city, given that it's a very small shop of folks that are able to work on these topics. So I think we should all be very grateful of folks like Kelly that are making this their passion. So that's it for me. I just wanted to stop by and say hi and let you know that it's something that I care about, and something that you'll hear more from the city as we continue to go along.
Thank you. Before Brian has to leave, any quick questions for Brian? We won't hold you here long, Brian. Anybody have any?
My kids have been very good about knocking on the door. They usually, when I'm on a Zoom meeting, they'll pop in and say hi, but they've been pretty good tonight.
They'll just come in. My kids just come in. They don't knock. Okay, I think you're good to go for tonight. Thank you so
Okay.
much for taking the time, especially out of your evening. We appreciate it.
Well, nice to meet all of you, and I'm sure I'll talk to you all soon.
Okay, thank you.
Thanks.
Okay, all right, that was wonderful. Next, we will move on to the Complete Streets resolution. We have Mark here, which is so exciting. So, Mark, floor is yours.
Let me stop share and pull up the most recent Complete Streets, but go ahead, Mark, sorry.
Sure. Thank you all for welcoming me back. What was in your packet initially was the work in progress, if you will, which had mostly green text and some red text. What Kelly's pulling up now is the version that you received today. I presume Kelly's what you're pulling up, right?
Do you see it now?
Yeah, we do.
Okay.
So the reason I just thought you'd want to see how the document has evolved. I know a few of you have taken a keen interest in this in particular. And so happy to answer any questions. You'll recall that last time I was here, I said that I wanted to overhaul the policy statement so that it would reflect the organizational format, the template that Smart Growth America recommended and to their needs. And I really liked the headings that Cleveland Heights used. And so I essentially just copied theirs, but then moved around our policy statements and then incorporated some of theirs and maybe a couple other sources too. So that's the genesis for this version, what I call version 3 of this document. Then today, I received comments from our Metropolitan Planning Organization, Mass and Metropolitan Planning Organization. One of the staff people there, they have been working on Complete Streets as well. And so I ran our policy by them, and those are the changes that you received today, which are in red text starting on the Exhibit A. So that's the background. I don't know how you wanted to do this, Christie, but happy to answer any questions. Welcome any feedback or discussion. I know Kelly said it's not required, but I really would like to encourage your feedback so that we can wrap this project up here in the next month or so, take it to the council for adoption.
Perfect. Kelly, one idea I have is, I'm not sure how, I didn't have a chance. I was running from meeting to meeting today. And I don't know if others had a chance to review the latest
The changes?
changes that
Sure.
just came out. So I don't know if you want to go to
Go
those.
to Exhibit A, yeah, they're very minor.
Okay.
So Exhibit A, Kelly, please, couple pages down. Most of them are just, shall versus should, or will,
Oh,
and a couple things, and then, let's see here. I don't remember there being a blank in there. How did that happen?
No, there shouldn't be, because I did look at your. I wonder
That's
why
what-
it's,
I don't see that in my version. It might be an internet bandwidth issue.
right, oh. Yeah, I'm just pulling this from my desktop. Let me
Beginning.
stop share and reshare just to see.
Maybe the page. Let's see here.
you could turn off your camera, Kelly, if you think that might help just for a second, just so that your bandwidth, I don't know if that would help.
Yeah.
So far, it's there. Well, same problem. Can you just open it as an
Google
email?
document.
What's that?
Sorry, Google document had it up clean.
Can you access just the file? It's under maybe?
Kelly,
Or-
what happens if you scroll past that second page? Could
It
just-
was also
Yeah.
missing.
Yeah, I can pull it up as an email. Just a second.
If we can't get it, you said they're just really minor.
Yeah, it's
Mark,
well, ironically, I didn't print out that copy for myself. It wasn't really any substantive changes.
Okay.
Thank
Oh,
you.
got it. Okay. Yeah, no problem then.
Let's see what Kelly finds. Thank you. Give her a moment to see if it comes
Yeah.
up.
I'm almost there. Okay.
Well, while she's pulling
Try
that up,
this. Do you see it in email form?
yeah, why don't you scroll down? Let's see if there you go.
Yeah.
It's working better. Go one more page, please. There you go. So under number 2, simply added the word in a sequence, just to emphasize that this is a sequence, 1 through 5, that was meant to be priority order. The MPO staff just suggested clarifying that was a ranked order. If you want to go on to, I'll just assume there are no questions unless somebody stops me. So then number 3 had, instead of the city should incorporate this policy, it was consistent with B below to say will. And the reason why some of these verb changes happen is because I pulled the policy from different parts. And so, this was not intentionally, I didn't say should for any particular reason. I just wasn't careful enough to be consistent. So that doesn't change anything other than it's more emphatic. That was a typo. The next one, instead of saying project, it should have been provide. In number 3 on that 4.3 is just a clarification. It doesn't change anything. The only one that go next to number 6, yeah, there it is. 5D, shall instead of should. And then here I said other pertinent agencies to promote adherence to the complete streets principles established by this policy, to help ensure that they are incorporated into all projects within the public right of way. So again, just clarification. One more shall under number 7, and I think that's it for the changes. So it really was, yeah, that's it for the changes.
Oh, Lisa, go ahead.
Sure, thanks. I really like this policy. I'm very excited for council to consider it and I hope approve it. I have a couple of observations that I'll relay now, and then Mark, depending on the extent to which you want edits, suggested edits, I can give you tomorrow a call and we can talk about it. First, I always like to have page numbers on things. That's super helpful, even though it can be confusing when we assemble the meeting packets. We have 2 different page numbers on the same page. I'm glad you brought up the shall and will, because I think that it needs to be intentional, consistent and intentionally different if it is ever different. So that's something, you know, to scrub in the final version. On the first page, I suggest citing the actual action step from the comp plan, like not necessarily quoting from it, but at least refer to what number it was. I think, I'm not sure why we have the green part instead of just complete streets. It's complete and green streets policy. Honestly, I think going with complete streets, especially if that's what was in the comp plan, that would be the way to go. Both for simplicity and also for building support for it. I think it would be a good idea, in addition to having the staff prepare a report. I think there should be a report to council. Maybe, I don't know if annually would be too frequently, but you know, some of the situations we've been facing, I think, at least in part, stem from council having passed things and then moved on and overlooked the need to check back in and make sure everything's working as intended. And that's certainly not just something that plagues our council. I think every legislative body experiences that. You showed us the changes from the version we received earlier. I didn't get the sense that climate action for its own sake was acknowledged as an important outcome or side benefit of having a complete streets policy. There was something in there about resiliency and being able to respond to or be resilient to climate, further deterioration of the climate or climate emergencies, but I didn't see anything about reducing energy or our reliance on fossil fuels, for instance, by increasing the amount of transit or bike or pedestrian transportation.
Kelly,
So,
can you just scroll down slightly, Kelly, please? I think that would be a good place to put it, is what Lisa is saying. Under that last bullet, I think that's, Lisa, what you're suggesting is we incorporate it in there.
is it in the resolution that you're looking at? Yeah,
Well,
right.
yeah, it's
Yep,
basically the justification. I think what you're saying is call out climate. Oh, there is a reference to climate change there. Resilience to
Right,
intent-
but it's increasing community resilience to intense storm events and climate change. It's not combating climate change. Does that make sense? This is a similar concern I have with the strategic plan, is that they emphasize resilience and climate change is a reason we need to be resilient, but they don't really emphasize we need to
lessen our
be
contribution
combating.
to lessen contribution to climate change.
Yep. And
Okay.
then the last thing I was going to suggest is, if this does get passed, there's the educational component involving the police department, which that's one of the things that I would suggest rephrasing just a little bit. I think it would be great to have something like a complete streets week where, everybody focuses on trying to call attention to not just the opportunity to bike and walk, but maybe the need for doing so and the benefits of doing so. And that might be a good time to, or a good activity leading up to that could be something I've suggested to you in the past, Mark, trying to encourage more businesses in Middleton to sign up for the bike benefits program. Or even just, for the week, offer a benefit to people who walk or bike to a restaurant or a bar or something like that. So anyway, those are my comments for now, and I can give you a call tomorrow and we can talk about the other comments I have.
May I just address a couple of things quickly to help explain? So the reason why, is that all right with you?
Sure, of course, yeah.
So the reason why we stumble over shall versus will versus should is because internally here, Public Works would like us to use should. And Ped Bike Transit would like shall, and you would like shall. So I just wanted to explain why you see some of that language going back and forth. I had pushback during the initial review of this a few months ago. I'm not saying it should be should, I'm explaining to you why it might be inconsistent sometimes. So I apologize for that. The reason it's called complete and green streets, the reason why I suggested that is because Cleveland Heights did that, and Madison is also working on a policy that is, according to their website, which hasn't been updated in quite some time, but they are working on a complete and green streets policy. So I just felt like that seemed to be a direction that people were going. I have no problem with just calling it the complete streets policy, but that's the context and where that idea came from. It does incorporate, this version emphasizes more stormwater management, storage and infiltration to reduce flooding and enhance water quality and other benefits of green streets. So I think that's where the idea came from. Again, happy to take any feedback on that like you're giving. And the rest of it, I don't have any comments on it. I just wanted to provide that context.
Okay, and just to clarify on the name of it, I wouldn't suggest at all changing the body, the content. just
Understood.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, I understand.
And the issue of shall versus should, I'm all in favor of shall, and I shall advocate for that when
And
at
I
the
know you will.
appropriate time.
And I know you will, Lisa.
Okay,
Thank you.
thank you. Dick, your hand is up next, then Laura.
Yeah, I have to confess that I didn't take the deep dive into this whole thing, but my overview of it was quite consistent with Lisa's. That I'm wondering what are the tensions and what are the congruencies with our sustainability goals that are excuse me, that our committee is espousing. I feel like that this is a lot of sensible street stuff, but if we want to get people to stop driving cars and have other modes of transportation to get around and to favor bicycles to make communities more, condensed, or that's not the right word, but I'm having trouble seeing how this is something that our sustainability committee pushing our new goals out could endorse, other than it just looks like good street policy, but I don't feel like it espouses our overall goals. And I think Lisa's made some really good comments about that. I just want to say one other thing. For example, I live on a street with very tall street terrace trees, and they're so large, they are preventing people from putting solar on their roofs. And so I'm asking myself, well, should we have a policy on streets that promotes homeowner energy production, or are we just going to ignore it or give lip service to it? So there's a lot about how we build our neighborhoods and the design of the streets, the location of the streets, the direction of them, kind of sets the configuration of the lots. So the lots to have more south-facing roofs could somewhat depend on the orientation of the street. So I feel like if we really want to get into the energy goals and the things that we're talking about in this committee, we need to be more explicit about it, at least so it comes out of it. I didn't pick that up on my less than deep dive of it.
Okay,
I get in line behind Laura.
yeah, okay. Laura, thank you, Dick. Then Laura, then Dominic.
Okay, thanks. So I'm just kind of following up on both of them. I did read it and I have like few minor things which I can email you. But probably the thing that's stood out most when Lisa was talking, you were talking about bringing in climate change and language. Language you could add would be like, mitigation of climate change, like these streets that use, less cars and, biking and walking, that is a mitigating effect because you're using, you're releasing fewer greenhouse gases. Adaptation is, we realize this is, a problem that we're kind of dealing with. So if you wanted to kind of tie in the things we're trying to do, both in terms of what Dick said, we're trying to mitigate the effects of climate change to create a more sustainable community and streets, and we're trying to adapt. And then, I take your point with the green. I kind of, personally like it, but everything, and this is a pretty sustainability positive community based on the poll where 81% seem to want us to make decisions. So I think Dick makes a good point that we do need to get that language in there. And yet we don't want to have language in there that turns people off. I was just at a US Green Building Council event, and one of the engineers said sustainability is practically a repellent to some of her clients. So how can you get the point in the policy of what we're trying to do without using repellent words? And if someone has a different political standpoint and they attach green to something, it's like, how much are we going to lean in and how much are we going to kind of allow, all right, we're dealing, with this, which is kind of both a broader picture, and then I've got, little things. But that was just kind of my thought of some things we should consider.
Those are good points. Thank you, Laura. Dominic, you're up.
Yeah, I had a couple specific comments and questions, but just generally speaking, overall, I love the policy. Specifically, I love the implementation plan, how I love the breadth of it and how distributed the plan is throughout all of the cities of various teams and functions. Yeah, thank you. I think I am of the opinion that this is directly an extension of our work in the Sustainability Committee. Transportation is responsible for like 27% of greenhouse gas emissions, and not all of that's going to go away just from electrification. And I think that we have to be very intentional about building an infrastructure that supports multimodal transportation. So I think that this is well suited to the work that we're doing here. Another comment that I'll make is that sustainability is a very broad, it's a big tent, and included in that tent is health and wellness. And I would, one of the specific pieces of feedback I'd offer is to consider adding a direct comment regarding health and wellness in the second whereas section. One of the many epidemics that we're facing is an epidemic of obesity and mental health. And I do think that long walks and sometimes under the shade of trees can help with those epidemics as well. I think the final comment that I would offer, very specific and piddly, but in your performance metrics section, I'm looking measures section, consider additionally tracking near misses in addition to crashes. Near misses are very underreported, and trying to increase the awareness of near misses can help uncover large and relevant data sets. That's all. All in all, I think it's great.
Great comments as well.
So basically near crashes or near collisions.
Correct.
Okay.
Yep.
Near misses is one of those terms that's become that it's a miss. It was a close call is what you're getting at. It's a
Got it,
it's a
okay.
near- well, I'm trying to understand what you're getting at. So a near miss as opposed to it's a near collision is what you're saying.
A near collision, vehicle to pedestrian,
Got it, got it.
bike, vehicle to vehicle.
Are those reported? Because I'm thinking.
No, that's the problem.
Yeah.
We basically, what we could do is have an action step that encourages people who observe a near collision, near miss, however you want to call it, to basically encourage that be reported and to have the police make sure that's reported.
Actually,
know.
that's a good.
But it's not,
That
no.
is- Yeah, that's
Like
important. I can
Yeah.
report one from a couple weeks ago because I almost got
Yeah.
hit. I almost got hit riding my bike to yoga because somebody was turning left into Goodwill and did not stop for me.
And I'm glad to hear about that. I'm not glad to hear that you nearly got hit. But I'm glad to hear that you're telling me about that because to my knowledge, we haven't had any collisions with our new trail, but we need to put in a crosswalk improvements to help delineate that there's a path crossing those driveways. And frankly, I'm surprised we haven't had a collision yet and we don't want one. But to hear, I mean, it's glad you're reporting that and I'm sorry that happened to you. Let me clarify what I was saying. So, and on the way here, I nearly hit a deer and to the point where my car, actually, I was very impressed. My car actually braked.
Wow.
I was shocked that my car.
On your behalf?
On the
Without,
automatic.
without your intervention?
No, I was intervening, but
Okay.
the car felt I wasn't intervening fast enough.
Oh, yeah.
And this was on Pheasant Branch Road and all of a sudden the car braked even more than I did,
Yeah.
which I was shocked that my car was that sensitive to, which is great. I mean, that's wonderful. I don't think I would have hit it without the intervention, but it's still, Anyway, the point is, I don't feel compelled to report that. But obviously with the human, that's much different. I mean, you want to report those close calls, like what Lisa's just reported. I mean,
Yeah.
that's very important. So,
Thank you so much. Well, if you don't mind, I don't see any other comments. I'll jump in with a couple of comments. First of all, I think this is great, Mark. I'll maybe go backwards here. Regarding the closed calls, I emailed, I think it was the city or maybe the police department. I can't remember. It was like at least probably 10, 12 years ago, on the corner of High Road and Century. Just, there's always kids there and there's always just nasty misses. And I think there's been tons of accidents there. And with the kids crossing there, I emailed somebody a long time ago and I got a message back from the police department just saying, just make sure the kids look that the road's clear, type thing. But I think I had, to Lisa's point, I had seen so many near misses there that it like worries me that all these kids cross there to go to the school on foot. And yeah, so anyway, okay. Back, Laura, your comment about the green is repellent. I think I think that's that's well taken. I heard an interesting comment lately. That was from a person I really respect a lot, but is maybe the person's outside of my bubble a little bit and outside of the sustainability bubble. The person's also respected in the community. And like I said, I respect him a lot. And he actually runs a, big HVAC company. And so I was asking him, because most people here have heard I'm interested in maybe geothermal and we need a new furnace and these things. So I was asking him, about what are the most sustainable options I can do. And he started out telling me, to your point, Laura, he said, well, first of all, half of our client base, if we say the word sustainable, they basically tell me to get lost. They don't even want to hear it. And so I think that may be something here. We do have a mixed community. And I think maybe watering down a couple things is not a bad idea. So I'll just leave it at that and leave it up to you, Mark, how you want to take it from there. Dick, back to, I thought this before too about the solar panels. So one of the things I struggle with too is that, yes, and we've talked about this, personally on side conversations, but I feel like in the summers, at least, if you have bigger trees, you don't need the air conditioning on as much because maybe it's cooler around there. So then therefore you don't need, as much energy. So that's my only thought about that, with the trees and the size. If you want to have a comment now, based on what I said, feel free to mention. Okay. And then for you, Mark, the complete streets, I just wonder, like, for people not in the government, community circles, the municipalities, maybe define what clean streets are, and I can't remember if that's at the beginning or not, but just you kind of said it a little bit ago. This is to enhance, this and that, but maybe just like
complete streets are.
Yeah, just at the beginning, like what are we talking about when we mean complete streets? what are complete streets? Just a summary at the beginning. Why should people care? That might be, I think, a good start. And then also, and I don't want to take a ton of time on this, so we can take this conversation offline too, but in section 8A 8.A.7, the pavement and the surfaces, the impervious surfaces with green space. I wonder if the city has any plans to either for the city properties or required neighborhoods to maybe put in, instead of just plain concrete or plain blacktop, we can put in some of these, permeable pavers or actually we do have some brick, I know, in the city, but require more of the permeable pavers, porous concrete or porous asphalt. Just like sidewalks, do they need to be just concrete, or can they, I know cost also comes in, but can they just be something a little more porous so that we have more water infiltrated? And I will say, I don't know, because even I'm still learning about this. I don't know if everyone, and actually everyone understands why it's so important. Even I'm still learning that, definitely. And I'm not an expert on it, but water is filtered, right? And correct me if I'm wrong on this, Mark. Okay, so we want the water to go in where it lands so that it can get filtered naturally, right? And go into the aquifers.
And not create flooding.
And not create flooding. Yes, yes. Let's say though, beyond just flooding, the flooding for sure, but let's say we don't want tons of water going in the drains, even on a non-flood date, and going into the lakes because it carries the oil and the sediment and then and the other things, right? And then it makes the lakes dirty, right? Is that right?
Right, yeah. So some infiltration is both a quantity and water quality.
Okay, okay.
And, making sure our aquifer is replenished.
Yeah.
Obviously there's other factors there. It's much more complicated than just rainwater infiltration, but there's all sorts of reasons why you want to capture water at the source at where it lands instead of allowing it to.
Yeah.
So are you saying that we should have a more, this was number 7 that you're citing.
Yeah.
Is meant to be a report that the city tracks how we are reducing impervious surfaces. That's the intent.
Yeah.
So I think implicit in that is encouraging the impervious surfaces.
Yeah, yeah.
So one example, for example, is the old gas station at the corner by the fire station that used to be a gas station at Parmenter and University Avenue. That still has concrete on it. There's no reason why that still needs to be concrete. So that's, that is something that we could.
Yeah.
Our neighbor here next to the Middleton Chamber, removed a driveway that occupied the entirety between the two buildings. And he excavated when the asphalt was falling apart, and he replaced a third of the driveway of the paved surface now is grass.
Yeah.
Because he excavated down 3 feet and created a rain garden essentially.
Yeah.
So those are the types of projects I think that we would then be able to report. We want to
Yeah.
encourage that.
Okay.
That's kind of the thinking behind it.
Yeah, no, that's fabulous. What I'm thinking is some of these reasons that you just stated to me, like the aquifer and, what happened? Tell me I don't know, what happens when the water runs down our driveway? Because I have a rain barrel, but some of it runs down our driveway and runs into the street drain. Does that have to be then processed by what happens to that? Where does it go?
Well, water that goes into the storm sewer almost always just goes directly to the lake, or goes to a creek, which goes to the lake. Sometimes goes straight to the lake.
Okay.
Most of the time it goes, the storm sewer, it ends up, actually, I don't have that all in my head, but I know a lot of it surprisingly ends up at Lakeview Park. A lot of people don't.
Oh,
that. In
yeah.
fact, we pump from Stricker and Tiedemann's Pond.
Yeah,
Ultimately we pump from Tiedemann's Pond.
yeah.
And when levels get to a certain height, then water gets pumped and it comes out at Lakeview,
Yeah.
and
okay.
which adds to issues there. So is it treated? I don't think there's ever any point where it's treated once it's in the storm
Yeah,
sewer.
yeah.
That's the
Okay.
intent is, it's just a tube that's
Yeah.
filled with raccoons.
My only point here, and I don't want to go on this forever, but is maybe some of the why for that, like, 'cause,
Understood.
yeah,
Yeah.
I think it could be helpful for me and maybe others. Dick.
Yeah, there's a couple of comments. One, we have urban heat island issues in cities. And I've seen recently, we're putting down a lot more black coverings of streets that absorb more heat. And for example, we know that if a rooftop is a lighter color shingle or something, that reflects that back up as opposed to absorbing it and then releasing at night, because nighttime temperatures, if we don't cool off our nights, that's a big issue. And so a street policy of putting down these black coating coverings is adding more to a heat island. So I just think being aware of it. The other thing about infiltration, don't forget, if you're infiltrating streets where a lot of salt is put on, then you're putting that in the aquifer. That's not good. So you want to infiltrate up gradient. Now your driveway, for example, Christy, if you could infiltrate that and without having put salt on, and then that would be cleaner water. So infiltrating more at the source, downspouts, and getting into swales and things before it picks up all the pollutants of streets. Parking lot sizes, a lot of times people, companies, whatever, build huge parking lots, but they don't really need it. So again, infiltrating at where the water is closer to the source is better than after it's had a chance to get polluted with salts and things. Of course, that's a seasonal thing, but when the concentration of salt is so high, that gets into the groundwater and it's going straight into the aquifer. And there are storm sewer cleaning things at the catchment basin kind of end of the storm sewers, but they do collect some oils and greases and some coarser materials, but pretty much once it gets in the storm sewer, it's going to the lake, although there are some treatment options. But there are things about streets that we want to be aware of and just not blanket say we want to infiltrate all water. But the type of pavement that we put on, I'd rather see a white concrete, although that concrete is going to emit CO2 as the concrete cures. So there's a lot of complicated issues. I think they just have to be recognized.
Good point. Thank you. I know, and my last point here, Mark, but I Googled it today, and I reference one example of in near Chicago, there's a place called the Morton Arboretum. It's a fabulous place, by the way. And their whole parking lot, huge parking lot, is all like bricks. Yeah, that, the water just soaks in. And I don't know if we would do any more of that up here. I don't know if it works with the plows, and it would have to depend on where and things, but just an idea.
Yeah, the parking lot idea, I really like that, Dick. You mentioned it too. I made a passing reference to it in 5B, but it's the idea of downsizing off-street parking lots. They're not designed for, your day after Thanksgiving shopping day, but they're designed for, Costco, we all know that lot is really big too.
Yeah.
And we don't need to design for every last car and have a buffer, that we really want to change that mentality. So I'll find a way to incorporate that into here as well.
Thank you. Good job. I like this. Okay, thank you so much. Dick, you still have your hand up?
Sorry, I'll get it down.
Okay, thank you. Anyone else have their hand up for this? Otherwise, we will move forward. Okay.
Is it your desire that you want to see it again, or are you happy with these changes to send it off to other committees? I guess that's my my request is for feedback on that.
Okay.
Because I don't want someone to say, "Oh, we wanted to see it again," and then I'd be disappointed.
Okay, that's a great question. I feel good with this. How does the group feel? Do we want to see it again? Do we want to?
My opinion is that in the edits you've made so far and the content that was before us, you've definitely earned my competence trust. I trust that you would take this feedback and put forward an excellent document for further review. And I would hate to see you lose momentum or time circling back to us, my opinion.
Do as you wish. I mean, the goal is to take this back to Public Works Committee and to the Plan Commission later this month, which is next week. So Okay,
Should we, is everyone comfortable with that? Do we want to vote on it? Or do we want to just say,
I'm fine, however you wish to, you know, when you've worked on previous documents like this, I think there's been some level of understanding that, you know, the wavelength is there and we're on the right track and you trust the person to incorporate those changes. I didn't really hear anything that was contradictory, you know, from,
Yeah.
I don't know any, well, other than should we have green streets or not? I actually, as we were having that debate, the reason why I don't like adding the words "and green," because that to me is undermining what complete is. It's either complete or it's not.
Yeah.
You know,
Yeah.
and so you could argue that a complete street really is something that is green, yeah, as well. I think then that's where the definition comes in. So I'll give that serious consideration and go back to just complete streets. But let me look into that a little further.
And I just wanted to add, Mark, would you let me know when this is going to be on the agenda for Public Works? And you said Public Works and Ped Bike and Transit will see it again?
Well, Public Works could see it again. Well, I don't know if Sean was planning to take it back there. I can't speak for his committee that he staffs, but I wanted to incorporate make these edits tomorrow so that he has the opportunity to take it back to the Public Works Committee next Monday, if he so chooses. You know, that's all.
Okay.
Yeah, that's ultimately his decision. He may decide it doesn't have to go back, or he may decide it's too early for it to go back then, and he would rather take another couple of weeks. So my goal is to make these changes tomorrow so that, you know, we keep the momentum going and try and bring this to the council. That's my goal.
Okay, I'll give you a call in the morning then so that I can relay some of my specific comments.
Or if you want to email them too, that's fine as well.
okay, so somebody help me with the procedures here. I agree with Dominic's point, you know, should we have a motion? Should I ask for a motion and?
Whatever it's up to you, Kelly. I guess I'm not the staff. I don't know what your normal etiquette is, but it's fine to give me this feedback, and by consensus, you know, you could say this is the feedback. That's fine. If you want to make a motion, that's fine too. It's up to you. You know, I don't know how formal you usually are.
Not super formal.
Okay.
Dick, what do you think?
Well, I think you came here to the committee to get some kind of approval from us, whether it's formal or just a go ahead. I think, aligned with Dominic's. I think he made a recommendation that he would be willing to approve it in concept with the recommendations and suggestions that our committee made tonight. I don't particularly think that it's helpful for us to review it one more time. I think Mark, you were pretty receptive to everything that was said. So I would be okay with a motion like what Dominic was suggesting.
Okay. So is that your motion?
Well, I think I'd like Dominic to make the motion and I'd be willing to second it, but I think.
Concept or.
Yep, I move to endorse in concept the plan as presented by Mark in consideration of all the feedback provided by the Sustainability Committee.
And I second.
Okay, let's take a vote. All in favor?
Aye.
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 Correct. Thanks, everyone. Any nays? Okay, you're good to go with us, Mark.
All right, thank you.
Who seconded that? Sorry.
Dick,
Okay.
I thought it just might be helpful for you to
Yeah, no, it's fine. It's fine.
know. Okay,
And thank you for your time. If you'd like, if one of you could just hit the power button here
when we're done.
when you're done. I think you sometimes have to hold it just to
Yep.
make sure it turns off.
Yep.
That's all you have to do.
Okay, thank you so
That
much
way I
for.
can- Just like you entrust me to finish this, I entrust you to leave the.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you
And then
for,
close the front door.
okay, the front, is it locked already?
No, the door to come into this meeting.
Oh.
Yep, I'm-
just this meeting. Okay, okay.
All right, thank you.
Thanks for
Thank
coming.
you.
Yeah, thanks for showing us that. Okay, all right, let's move forward. Mike, we have no other comments. Microgrid feasibility study report. Kelly, that's you, I believe, right?
Yes, this report is the deliverable that was provided to us by HGA Engineering to round out the microgrid feasibility study in our Middleton Business Park, which was the result of a $100,000 grant from the State Office of Energy Innovation. And it was a report meant only to begin analyzing how feasible it would be, or to look how would you even go about approaching a community scale microgrid in the business park. It was a very large project and we didn't have a ton of time. It was, we got the contract late, a bit late from the PSC. So we had a few months to do it. And I think that we made some great progress and got a lot of modeling done given the short amount of time. And I think we learned what else we would have to study in order to move further with this type of strategy in the business park. And we also made, I think, some good connections with corporate headquarters and businesses in that business district who were receptive to learning more and worked with us in the short amount of time that we had to get us some data. And I think there were others who'd be interested if it moved forward to get more involved in the future. So, so this is a report, and sometimes with documents like this, rather than approve them or critique them deeply on what they could and couldn't have done, although that's definitely up for comment, acceptance is just, okay, we appreciate the work that you've done. We accept this report as a city from this project. I'm really just wanting everyone, I want you to read it and understand what work has been done. And also it's a way of getting it in front of Common Council to help educate a bit and help keep microgrid technology top of mind, and that these things are moving forward in the community and in the world, in our region. And here's data, and here's some additional information that we could use if we made a decision to move forward on this. By accepting this report, it does not tie the city to following through with the microgrid in the business district. It simply is sort of a recognition that this report has been made, I think. That's how I would describe it. But I'd be interested to hear any feedback you might have on it, or things that interested you, or any feedback on what you thought about it.
I had just a quick question. I acknowledge your need for an acceptance of the report, and I want to do that. Just curious, several of the scenarios presented required quite significant engagement from the private businesses in the business park. What was your experience regarding their interest and willingness to participate and to contribute, perhaps financially, to such an endeavor?
I think it was the biggest challenge to me, maybe as a city entity, not necessarily the biggest challenge from the engineers, although I think they expressed this too, is just that for a lot of these feasibility studies for this grant, they were for singular buildings. And so the stakeholder engagement was basically with a staff of 5 or 6 people at a library facility in a town, whereas this was a very large project boundary that included many really varied businesses. There's warehouses, there's healthcare, there's service industry, there's all kinds of different businesses out there. And so just getting to the right people within those businesses took a couple months of phone calls and outreach. And then a lot of them are, very busy, and they receive so many questions from outside sources that they're sort of like, that sounds interesting, but we just don't have, we don't have the bandwidth right now coming out of COVID. Like, it sounds great, reach out to us in the future. So I do think that was really challenging. The few that did engage, I felt were significant. Rockwell, I think Automation, and Spectrum, which is a really big corporate headquarters that's stationed here in Middleton, and Kiva Center, which was originally really behind this project, but then ended up not having the bandwidth to engage too much during the process. And there were a couple other, PPD was interested in the project. So we had some really big entities in the business park that were interested and felt like it could benefit them, and that they would be interested in exploring this more. I don't think it got down to the level, the granular level of how much, money would we be willing to put in, or because I don't think we really got that deep into the analysis on what that would actually look like infrastructure wise, to the point where you could price anything out, or we didn't have time, I don't feel like, to go through the different financing schemes that would have to come into play. And I really wish we could. So I feel like this was a good starting point, but that there would have to be more study done to move forward with such a massive project.
Could I ask one quick follow-up, please? Second follow-up to my request for a follow-up. I noted several of these businesses already have kind of resiliency baked in, like they have some of their own generators. I thought I saw storage as well, although I'm struggling to find it. Was that the basis for the interest, or were they looking for participation in something somebody else was going to bring to them? Was the interest in gaining resiliency and participating in a more resilient network, or was it receiving resiliency?
I think a little of both. I think they were interested to know how a community scale microgrid would impact them and their resiliency. So I think it was a little bit of both, because they felt like it would be interesting to be a part of, but they also wondered what added resiliency would this actually give us. I do think there's a level of I wouldn't want to say fear, but caution in that district, because they were so impacted by the flood, and many of them were offline for a significant amount of time and lost a lot of money. So I think they were looking for fail-safe ways to make sure that their lab equipment stayed online and that type of thing. So I don't know, I guess I'd say a bit of both, but I still think if we really did this project well, I feel like there should be follow-up and some more conversations to be had about how would we move forward now that we have what we have as data. What would you like to see as a next move to keep this conversation going? And that hasn't happened yet.
Great, thank you.
Okay, thank you. I'm not sure whose hand went up first, so we'll go with Laura first and then Lisa.
Oh, you're muted.
Just trying to get.
Thank you. Yeah, I had parts of it pulled up on where to go, another screen. Oh, where did it go? Well, I just had it pulled up. I was looking at pages. One of my question was, well, why don't you go to Lisa first, because my question was specific and I just lost the page. I'm
Okay.
gonna pull it back up again.
Okay, Lisa, you're up.
Okay, thanks. This is great, Kelly. I'm so glad that you're going to be able to cross this off of your to-do list. I had a question and a comment. The question is there any clean energy benefit to all this work, or is it all resiliency related?
Well, I guess it really is highly dependent on the scenario chosen, and if you would add solar, and then also what kind of battery system you'd put in. Like there's some peak shaving and ways to reduce some energy use, but typically I think these projects are build more as a resiliency project. But when you look at not so much the energy reduction, but the cost of that kind of thing, as the engineers say, like it's not something that pays you back until it pays you back, because if you hadn't had it installed, you would pay enormously. It's like, what's $33 million worth until $33 million is lost because of a massive flood?
Right.
So it's kind of
Well,
it's
and
a different lens of talking about it, I guess.
And I asked because I'm thinking, is there grant money or something available to plan for resiliency, but we can also invest in solar, and therefore in the meantime, while we're waiting for that emergency to come about, we would get the benefit of more companies in the business park using solar, or the ones who currently use it, using more and storing it through batteries. So I think I understand your answer. The second thing I'm looking at, and I confess I only read the executive summary, but there's a description on page, well, it's 18. I don't know. It's the executive summary, the first page of the executive summary. It says this emergency backup power will allow the industrial area and buildings within it to continue to function as critical infrastructure. And then on the next page, it talks about financial investment. We'd need to figure out what the rate structure should be for those businesses that want to participate. There'd have to be a negotiation with MG&E. So my comment is, I see this as a potential problem or a tension, because if we say to businesses, hey, we as a city would like you to be able to function as our critical infrastructure, like UW Health is a good example. Will they be willing to pay to participate in this so that Middleton can have that emergency critical infrastructure available? And if we flip it around and say, hey, we want to be able to help you, this microgrid will be able to help you avoid what happened in 2018. You'll be able to continue to do pedicures if you can protect your, the files in your basement and sell burgers, whatever. Then is there a source of funding that will pay for that? Because the cities might not want to invest in that. And I don't know if the federal government would either. So I hope that makes sense, that I see this. The question is, who's going to pay for it and who benefits? And if it's the businesses that will benefit, what exactly is the benefit? Is it being able to remain functional as critical infrastructure that we can depend on in an emergency? Or is it just so that they can continue to operate as usual or avoid catastrophic losses?
Well, the microgrid out there wouldn't serve the rest of Middleton. It would just serve the feeder that's connected to those businesses. So it's very site specific, although it's big. Like when I say community scale, that's meant as that's how they descriptively called these types of microgrids, because they're so large. Or they're called many different things. And I think an engineer would be much more specific on what they would call this one. But it wouldn't serve outside the project boundary.
Sure,
So,
no, I get that, but I guess then I'm wondering, what does it mean to say that the emergency backup power will allow the industrial area and buildings within it to continue to function as critical infrastructure? Critical infrastructure in my mind it's a term of art. It's like the police department, the UW Health, because in an emergency, we'd want to have access to medical care. It's the utilities, it's maybe even the airport, would be considered critical infrastructure to be able to. In fact, I think Rich Morey supported the notion of doing this microgrid study because they might need to be flying people in and out. So I guess when I say it's something that would benefit us, I mean the city of Middleton and our emergency operations would benefit from critical infrastructure. But I don't know that the businesses themselves, like I'm thinking of the spa, or maybe Costco could be considered critical infrastructure, but the spa and some of the other businesses out there, but they're not that type of business.
I think one type of business that it wouldn't be in the same category as the police department and things, but like PPD, that's an entirely different class than the pedicures. So they have, let's say, a -80 freezer, and like some of those things, they have a backup generator. But I think in this report, with the flood, they went down 25 hours you lose lose the components of a -80 freezer, and this is all healthcare stuff. I mean, not necessarily patient treatment, but, different things. I mean, that's a big deal, locally, and not what you're talking about, Lisa, but that's I think that's a different type of business than, Costco, another bag of
Sure,
chips,
sure, and-
or something like that. Yeah, yeah.
my last attempt to explain it is just, all I'm asking is, what is the benefit to businesses that would participate in this? And who pays for that benefit? I think that needs to be crystal clear. I'm guessing this is the final report and that HGA isn't going to amend anything, but I think in the presentation to council, it needs to be really clear why would a business want to participate in this? And how would the businesses pay to participate? And what would the city be paying?
Well, I don't think we got to that level of detail. I almost feel like this report or this study was to see, could it be done? How would it even begin to be done? And I think some of the questions that you have were raised in the report, or the reason why we wanted to do a report, but we could, I don't think we have those answers. And I don't think that I thought we would have an answer like, well, the city's going to have to pay this much for it, and the businesses are going to get this benefit, this exact benefit from it. It's so complicated. I mean, I don't think I can speak to it very well because it's so complicated and so site specific for pretty much each business. It's site specific for them. There is a lot of critical infrastructure out there, depending on how you define critical infrastructure, which I think that's really important to understand what that definition is. But there are pharmacy services, mental health services. There's things that are deemed critical infrastructure. So I don't know, like, I think the funding would have to come from, big federal grants who wanted to do a type of pilot program to see how you would do that. There's still so many questions for the utility on how you would do it. So, I mean, I think there's a lot of steps before you start getting into, well, is it worth it to do this? It's sort of we're trying to figure out how to do these types of projects and trying to figure out how they would benefit different entities. I don't know. I just feel like like my concern, I guess, as staff is that you get these grants to do these studies, to study very complicated, complex things. But then when you present what you've found, which isn't nearly enough because you haven't had the money or the time, then I feel like the questions become so pointed on that I feel like it almost it makes it sound like, well, why would we ever want to do this? And this is a waste of time, and we don't even know. Instead of thinking like, well, we've got a starting point now, we have some information, what's the next step? Like, what information do we not know that we would need to know to find out if this would even be worth pursuing?
Those are super good points, Kelly. Why don't we change directions here? Because I hear you all loud and clear. I think they're fabulous points, but I'm mindful of time. We have 8:05. We have Laura wants to go on this. I'm not sure who is up next. I think Dick, you're next, and then Dominic wants to comment. So let's continue the comments on this topic to learn a little bit more about what the rest of the group is thinking too on it. So go ahead, Laura. If you don't mind, Kelly, that I took it in that direction. Okay, thank you.
And that's fine. I had, some of my thoughts kind of followed Lisa's as well. In fact, one of the things I thought was, what was the city's main objective, with this? And it sounds like it was kind of more an exploratory thing, but I was just wondering, because is the importance having a community resilience center, or like you said, is the importance having the necessary services which you list out for the crisis plan? So a couple things I heard in what Lisa said was we might want to, how you kind of frame the issue also probably makes a difference too. to who's listening and where you want to go. I won't take up too much time here. I had a couple of questions just in trying to understand things, and like, is this the final document? You noted that because they talked about utility data being collected through December 2022. Well, either that's a typo and they meant 2021, or we're still collecting data because December 2022 hasn't happened. So I was just kind of wondering, is it complete? Is this a typo? Something like that. That was on page 41. And then I just was looking at comparing, or it was 41. I think that was, let me look on mine here, page 41. So if you go under data collection, MG&E Pheasant Branch feeder system, it was maybe not in there. Like I'm looking at my whole packet. So let me look at the page number at the bottom of it. Yeah, it is page, it says 25 of 80, or page 41 at the bottom, Middleton Community Microgrid. Keep going. Yeah, you're at 48, 46, 45. And it's in the first paragraph, 41, so up there. So see how it says it says a 1-year period, and then kind of lists 2022. So I think that was just a little bit of a typo. And then it mentioned about prices. I thought prices were low. It had the prices being lower during the day and higher at night. I thought electricity was the reverse. Maybe I misunderstand. I thought it was electricity was more expensive in the day because that's when everybody used it, and less expensive at night because we weren't using it. If that's wrong, is that right
Actually,
or wrong?
Laura, I was just out with somebody from MG&E last Thursday at an event. There's 2 peaks now. You're right. There used to be 1 peak in the middle of the day. Now there's 2 in the middle of the day, and then at night when everybody comes home from work and all the Xboxes go on and everything else.
Okay, so just some of that was just basic stuff. Being cognizant of time, I guess the main point is I wasn't really sure what the city was trying to, like, what they kind of wanted. And if it was just exploratory, that's fine. Maybe make that a little bit more, open. But it's like, was the important thing to have the Community Resilience Center protected? Or did we all want to see, can we also afford to have our critical services protected? Or by partnering with all the businesses in this area, can we all benefit by working together? And maybe that was it. We're just trying to explore these different options. And then when I was looking at the charts and the options, some of them looked to be equal, and I couldn't really understand the difference. Or they talked about how one was better than the other. Like they said that KC was better, and they referenced 168 hours, but they never gave any of that in the chart. And I'm like, well, where did that information come from? So if you're really kind of digging through it, I was looking at the charts and looking at the data, and things didn't all seem to kind of line up. So I had a little confusion in trying to look at the chart, read the content, and get exactly what they were saying.
Okay. Thank you, Laura. Kelly, do you want to comment, or should we, in the interest of time, go right to Dick? Or Laura, do you feel like you want answers on some of the things now? How are you feeling?
We've got time. Like I said, the big thing was, what does the city want? And if the thing's going to be revised a little bit, there are some areas I could email you and say, could you clear this up?
Okay, perfect. Thank you very much. Very helpful input. Dick.
Yeah. It strikes me, I read somewhere in here that it's critical each business provides the critical load reduction. I mean, so you have to apportion out, you have to decide how much energy can they produce or by battery storage make available during a critical outage. So you have to apportion it to the various entities within the unit. I don't think the city wants to be held, paying for this. We want, of course, to be a resilient community, and therefore we want high-tech businesses to come pay taxes, be part of our community. So that's an incentive to have this. But I don't think we want as a community to be paying for some businesses deciding, well, what's critical and not. I feel like the utility needs to be the one that would help set this up. So as a community, we might facilitate the organization of this, but it has to be organized by, I think in the scenario one, the utility doing it, and the city just is a bystander that would help facilitate the production of this. But I could see where, yeah, we don't want to be paying for some business to come here, and then if our electricity goes down by an act of climate change, that we have to end up providing the electricity to keep that business here. So I think it's the load reduction that's required, and how much energy can we produce that would make it a microgrid. And the utility's got to be a big part of it. I don't know that the city wants to be financing a microgrid just for maintaining the businesses and their profits and their whatever.
We wouldn't be financing the microgrid.
Okay.
I'll try to be really brief. So I really appreciated this study. I viewed it as a technical feasibility study, not necessarily as a policy feasibility study. What I read it as was, hey, engineers, how could you get the most electrons into this small space? And then what value is derived from that is somewhat of a TBD. I see various little pockets of value. So Kiva, and please correct me if I'm wrong, but I believe that Kiva is our local emergency response center. So if there was some massive natural disaster, Kiva would be the place American Red Cross shows up and hands out water or whatever. And so I think that as a community and as a city, we do have an interest in making that a resilient location. That's some value. The businesses in that area, as we've discussed, view resilience as an insurance policy. So there's value there for the businesses as well. And various concepts that were developed and presented in here bring online a tremendous amount of solar, which has value for the city and the community as well in terms of decarbonizing our grid and our operations in the area. So I would imagine that moving forward, we would try to figure out how to apportion value, and with that value, derive buy-in from a financial perspective. I can envision various different incentives, such as, hey, business, you bring the solar, we'll bring the battery. You're part of this resilient network, but you got to put solar on your roof to participate. Something like this, try to cost share in some way. I could see this being used to create a lot of different proposals. I think that there's a lot of really good information in here. Yeah, sorry, that was all I had.
Okay. Thank you so much, Dominic. Okay, so Kelly requested that, the committee accepts the report. So I don't know how everybody feels about that. So Kelly, do you still want to move down that path that we look for a motion? Okay, so would anyone like to make a motion that the committee accepts the report? I'm reading right from Kelly's words here, that this committee accepts the report and recommends that Common Council accept the report as the completed grant deliverable. And again, I'm going to read, no further action is required at this point, and acceptance of a report does not require the city to expend budget, nor does it require or request that city take any action to establish a microgrid project based on the acceptance of this feasibility study. So would anyone like to make a motion to accept the report?
I'll move that the Sustainability Committee accepts the report and recommends that council accept the report as well.
Okay, thank you, Lisa. Do we have a second for that?
I can second.
Okay, thank you, Deb.
Quick question.
Yeah.
I don't want to muddy the waters, but Kelly, is there any consequence for delaying the acceptance from a schedule perspective? It's a really big report. I'm sure a lot of folks would like to spend a little more time with it. Do you have any schedule-based contractual obligation or any grant repercussions to, is there a timeline?
I don't think technically. I have to provide a final report and I have to provide this document to the PSC by September 30th with all the reimbursements so that we can be reimbursed for the money expended from HGA Engineering to do the report. I don't think that they require that the report was accepted by the city, but it may draw red flags to the PSC, perhaps if they see that we tried to have it accepted and people didn't accept the report. So I don't really know. I mean, it's up to you.
Well, you could still meet your September 30th deadline. I mean, will HGA accept corrections, or, you know, like Laura was bringing up some of the things that just didn't seem, you know, the 1 year data period that actually is in the future or ends in the future, you know, are they, and I think Rick made a good suggestion for bookmarking differently. I mean, are any of these changes things we could submit for a revised version? I'm not talking like whole scale, change this and answer that, so much as on page X, you know, there's a typo, or it would be very helpful from a navigation standpoint to have different bookmarking.
Well, I have to submit the final report by the deadline or the city will be out about $70,000 that they'll have to come up with in the budget, because we've already paid. So I'm nervous about that.
No,
So I can't have it edited and then resubmit to the PSC. Like, they have a hard deadline of September. It's 90 days after the project ends. So whatever 90 days after June 30th, that's the hard deadline. Whatever they receive will be the final report. I mean, I suppose we could correct it however we want. We can rewrite this report because it's now the city's report. But we might have to pay HGA extra money. I mean, I can correct things. I wouldn't want to correct any technical things, but I can certainly like wordsmith a narrative part of it in the beginning. I mean, I would say it's like, it is kind of an engineering document. I mean, I corrected a lot. I went through a correction process with them as well. I just want the final report to be September 30th.
Yeah. Back to your
I
point,
don't have
Dominic.
any, I was just gonna say, I don't have any like major reservations or anything. I noticed a typo here and some confusion there, which maybe if I read it longer, I would be able to figure it out. But I would be happy to just, you know, correct the one typo so it doesn't go through with an absolute known typo. And then, you know, the rest might have just been more engineer brain than I was using at the time looking at stuff.
Yeah, I don't, with a September 30th deadline and the financial implications for the city, I think, yeah, the report is what it is. And we could just say we reviewed the report and
Yeah, I
found
mean,
it
I
acceptable
accept,
enough to pass
yeah,
on.
I accept the report. I think you did what you said you were going to do. And like you said, I don't know if wordsmithing at this point is going to add more value or if it's just going to be more work. I don't need that to accept the report. I'm good with it. If it needs to be submitted.
So we have a motion and a second. Do we have any more discussion? I guess, Christy, you're going to have to ask and say get a
Yep.
vote.
Yep, whose votes in favor of accepting?
Aye.
Accept it.
Aye.
Aye. Any nays? Okay, passed. Thank you, everyone.
Yep, thank you, Kelly.
Okay, thank you. All right, next up, we're gonna move on. And yes, thank you very much, Kelly. Let's move on to Shreya. We would love to hear your updates.
Okay, so I missed the last meeting, but so school started officially as of September 1st. So the green team has started having meetings. They've only had one, and I think it's just an introduction meeting to get the new members involved. So there's not much going on the green team. For the school itself, I just got an email this morning actually, and we're kind of short-staffed in the cafeteria so they're having 7 to 10 student volunteers as of now help clean up and do those kind of things in the cafeteria, which is like our main cause of whatever waste reduction we have. And I think what the green team presidents and I were thinking that we need to educate the 7 to 10 student volunteers about like what needs to be recycled and trashed, because they're especially like cleaning up the whole lunchroom because we don't have the resources for that right now. So I think what we're working on as of now are like how to educate the volunteers on like what and what not to recycle or trash, because not a lot of kids know that. As of now, it's mostly the update I have. And then about the composter, that's still going on. The school board president suggested us to send an email to the school board around November, December. So that's still going to happen. It's on my list. So I will send that out as well. But that's all I have right now.
Thank you. That's helpful. Deb?
At my last meeting, the Friends, it was brought up that, and speaking of trash, there's outside trash around the high school and on the other side of the banks of Pheasant Branch, on the Comrie side. And we're worried about trash getting into Pheasant Branch Creek. So we're wondering if that might be an initiative for the green team to do some trash pickup outside the building.
Sure, I can definitely put that on the president list. I know that the Key Club does that, but that's mostly later in the year, but I can I'll bring that up to the green team. I'm sure we can do that.
Thank you.
Let's put that down.
Great suggestion, Deb. Okay. Well, do you want to talk about Falco?
We can. I was going to ask before we do we used to have a hard stop at 8:30.
We do have a hard stop at 8:30. It's 8:23.
So just looking at the overall agenda, I wonder if there are any thoughts about moving agenda items to the front of next month's agenda for a more thorough update rather than cramming everything through in 7 minutes. What do you think about
We can do that. Yeah, for sure. Do you want more time for Falco? The more in depth?
Well, there are a lot of committee initiatives.
I think who is Lisa?
Yes, can I just ask for the purpose of the city's budget? Because we did have a budget hearing, or I'm sorry, budget meeting last Thursday and considered the fleet. And so if Dominic could give just like a 1-minute update as to the status of collaboration or coordination with Brad Hopwood on looking at the specific vehicles. Like, has anything been run through the Falco tool that the city is currently proposing for purchasing in 2023?
Yes, so Brad's full list, both option A and option B, have been run through the tool against the existing fleet assets that he's looking to upgrade. That report is in his hands, and I believe it was distributed with the Falco team as well. Falco is fleet asset lifecycle analysis. It measures the operational expense, capital expense, and carbon impacts of asset purchase decisions. All that information is available. In terms of the tool's life, it's been released. Version 1 is fully complete, and any future updates will be rolled into version 2. So version 1 is currently in Kelly's hands. She's looking to engage other municipalities and Slipstream as well to consider validating that by Slipstream, an external third party. And next steps for the Falco team is to take a deeper dive and make our own recommendations on the 2023 fleet recommendations. And we've had some conversations about it with Brad specifically, but we'd like to just take that information and make our own suggestions. And in parallel, engage Brad and Sean Stowski to collect more information and look for more learnings into their fleet needs and try to come alongside them to help them move towards more sustainable fleet options. We'd also like to engage in a similar fashion the police chief, Chief Hillenbrand, and any associates in his team who are involved in specifying police equipment and making those recommendations to Brad. That was the update out of our meeting last week, and that's our priority over the course of the next 3 to 4 weeks. Those kind of 3 efforts. Specific recommendations, Fleet, hope to have that out in a week or 2. Meeting with Brad and Sean, and meeting with Chief Hellenbrand. Does that answer your
Okay.
question?
It does. Would you be able to share, well, you said that the specific recommendations will be coming in a week or 2. September 29th is when we have our next budget meeting. It's going to be for different departments, but we'll have an opportunity to provide an update on the status of what we've already seen. I would love to see the options A and B. I'm not sure what you're referring to. In my budget book, we only see the mechanics cost estimate versus the replacement cost, like, what the mechanic thinks it'll be versus what the original estimate was. It does not break it down into option A would be this set of vehicles, option B would be this set of vehicles. So if you could share that document with me, not the tool itself, but that document, that would be really helpful. And then I just wanted to note that at the meeting on Thursday, Chief Hellenbrand did indicate that the police department will buy hybrid vehicles for any new police cars. Not quite there yet for EVs, but to make that pledge to only buy hybrids in the future versus ICE vehicles, I think was a significant indication of progress that should be acknowledged when you meet with the police chief.
Thank you for that. I will do so.
Okay, thank you. We have 2 minutes. I know one of the things on the agenda was, or that we should talk about, is paper shredding. That does need further discussion about, I know Kelly mentioned in a conversation that, the public wants this, but I know certain members have said, should we really be doing this? And then I'll also mention that there was some suggestions offline about the cleanup day at the Middleton Recycling Center, that actually Shreya, there was a suggestion, hope people don't mind, I'm jumping in on this quick, but that maybe the green team would actually really enjoy this and be a really good opportunity for you all to get in there, a little bit deeper dive in there and just kind of see where things go, what goes here, what goes there, what are the challenges to the recycling center. We all love it, but it's not, there are considerations. So I'm just trying to speed that along, and then we'll pick up some of these other things. We'll move them up higher on the agenda next time. Anybody have anything else before, because I do want to cut off right at 8:30. Lisa.
2 things, one for next time or November, but at some point before the end of the year, we do, according to the Sustainable City Plan, we'll develop a 1-year work plan. So we should develop our 2023 work plan at some point from the items in the Sustainable City Plan. 2, I wanted to mention that Brian Gatto in the budget document, I didn't want to take up his time while he was with us, but in the budget document, he did a really good job of, well, I assume he's part of the reason for it, but on page 51 of the document, under goals and significant issues in 2023, he mentions integrate the sustainability program further into administrative processes. And he also said, under significant issues for 2023, they want to have sustainability front and center in all city processes. So I wanted to mention those 2 things. It kind of gets back to the comment we heard earlier, and it's an indication that the message has been received.
Thank you. Okay, thank you so much, everyone. I'm sorry we didn't get to everything. Do we have a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Thank you, Dick. Second?
Second.
Deb, all in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any nays? No nays. Thank you, everyone.
Good night.
Good night.
Right?
Thank you.
Yep.
Yeah.